Well, hello, welcome again to a reading through of Sophocles' Philoktetes, and I got up to line 353. So this is in the middle of this rhesus, this long speech of Neoptolemos, where he's trying to win Philoktetes over to him. So part of what he says is true, and part of what he says is false. So he's told him that the sons of Atreus sent for him after his father died, saying that only he would be able to take Troy, or Troy could only be taken if he were there. So he's in the middle of this, and he's so the last bit here was that since having come, I would take the citadel at Troy. Ein de ema eide deuteron pleonti moi. And literally there was at that time a second day for me sailing. So as I was sailing on the second day, cargo for kaego, and I, and the main verb is here, from cat ago in the middle, and it's a technical term meaning to put into. So I put into, literally bitter sigeon. Now it's bitter because Sigeon is where Achilles, the tomb of Achilles, was located. I put in there with a favourable winded. Now plate is an oar, so it's example of sun ekdoke, where you refer to the ship by referring to the oar. Others take it as referring to the voyage and so on. So it's after a fair voyage, after a fair winded, or in a fair winded trip or something like that, or ship. And immediately Stratos, the whole army, began to greet me as I disembarked. They began to greet me in kuklo, in a circle, omnuntes, swearing that they were seeing Achilles again, the one who was no longer being, so the dead Achilles again, alive. So swearing they were seeing the dead Achilles alive. Kanos men un ekate, and he therefore, that man, that's Achilles, ekate, was lying there. So he'd not been buried at this point. But I, ill-fated one, when I wept over that man, when I wept for him, not after a long time, so litotes, so very shortly. Now here we get a variant reading. So prosphilos, you can take it as it is. It means having come to the sons of Atreus, who were my friends. Shine here reads prosphilos, I think. Prosphilos, meaning in a friendly manner, and takes it as an adverb. So, and that actually is quite good. So, having come in a friendly manner to the sons of Atreus, hosekosein, as was reasonable, as was natural, as was reasonable, I asked from them, I asked for the weapons, the bows, literally the weapons, the hopla, of my father, and also other things, as many as were, understand, his, as many as belonged to him. Hoi de apon, and then he becomes emotional, but they said, oi moi tlemonestaton logon. So alas, it is a most painful tale to tell. So they said, O seed of Achilles, So this bit here is he's being emotional. So they said, and he's going to say what they said, but in between he's upset that he's even got to describe this. Alas, O most wretched story, O most wretched tale, they said, O seed of Achilles. Tulla for Ta'ala, the other, and it's patroi alpha's been elided here. The other things belonging to your father are present for you. Helesthai epexegetic here, to take from Hyrio. But another man rule now has control of his weapons, the weapons of that man. The son, the offspring of Laertes, of course, that is Odysseus. Scholars note here that here Neoptolemos refers to Achilles as the offspring of Laertes, which is what you get in the Odyssey, of course. Elsewhere, Philoktetes refers to him as the son of Sisyphus, who, of course, was the great trickster. Cargo, for Caego, and I, having burst into tears, I immediately, ex anistemi, I stood up with a heavy anger, and cat algasas, being in great pain, well, we would say I said, but it's historic present. So being, this actually apparently is only here in Greek literature, but it must mean something like being in great pain, being very in pain. I said, we would say, it's I say, but we say I said, oh Sketlia, oh you ratbag. Now it goes from the singular to the plural here, so he's referring to Atreus and all the others as well. We get A introducing a question. Did you indeed dare, Dunai, to give my tuke? Well, tukos is very vague, it's connected with tuko, to make, so we could say my equipment, perhaps, might be good here. Did you dare to give my equipment to someone instead of me, prin mathane emoi, before I even learnt about it? Hot date Odysseus, and Odysseus said, and then we get an explanatory gar clause here for. Now, Kure is like Tunkano, it's just he happened to be nearby. So Odysseus said, for he happened to be nearby, yes, oh boy, justly they have given these things. In other words, to me, they have given these things justly. For I, now this is our ta here, and Esosa from Sodzo, for I kept them safe, and also him, being present, from parami, participle there. Now, Odysseus had protected the body and armour of Achilles after Achilles had been killed. So there's an allusion here to Odyssey 5:309 to 10. So he said, I kept them safe, and being present, I kept him safe as well. That is the body of Achilles. Cargo, for Caego again, and I, having become angry, from Koloo, having become furious, immediately. Now, arasso is to strike, can also mean to curse, perhaps assail. So immediately I cursed, or I assailed them with every evil word. It's in the plural, with all evil words. Uden endies poiumenos, so making nothing lacking. So in other words, I didn't hold back. Making nothing lacking, literally. Atamakanos hopla afaris. So if, so in other words, so if that man, Odysseus, might, since that man had taken away from me my weapons, since that man had taken my weapons from me. Hode enthar hakon. Funny bit here. It could mean something like he having come to this place, or having reached this point. In other words, he being abused by a mere boy. It could also, some others take it to mean he interrupted me, joined in the conversation at this point. And we get a chi pair with a participle, although not being quick to anger, not being short-tempered. So although he was not short-tempered, he having come to this point, I think having reached this point, I think is probably the best here with this. Dakthes, this is from Dachno, somewhat morphed, so from Dachno to bite. So it's literally having been bitten, so having become incensed. With regard to, now this is a ha and x and a kuo. So having become bitten, or having become incensed, with regard to what he was hearing, to what he heard, thus he replied. An old use of amabo. In other words, perhaps thus he said in exchange, to get the idea of the change in it. Uk eist hin hemas. You were not where. Now this is that adverbial use of hina. You were not where we were, but you were absent, again, where you ought not to have been, where there was no need for you to be absent. So, so you were not where we were, but you were absent where you ought not to have been. And these things, epe kai legestas, since also you speak with such a bold, this is a participle here, bold mouth with a bold tongue. Ume, this is very strong with a subjunctive, very strong negative, so you will never ever sail off into Skyros, sail out into Xyros having them, that is, having the weapons. Toi autokusas, kax onedistes kaka. Having said such things, such evil things, hang on, this is a chi x, isn't it? So this is chi x and onedisdo. So having said such evil things and having made such reproaches, Pleo, I am sailing home. This is an old verb, teta amai, it's very Homeric, being bereft of. So being bereft of that which is mine, at the hands of this most evil Odysseus, and a man, so he is evil and he's from evil parents. This is kai ek kaka, and you've got to understand parents here. So from the most evil Odysseus and from from evil parents, I think it's generally taken to mean there. So the most by that most base man Odysseus from base parents. Kuk for kai uk itiamai auton. I do not blame him, hostus en tele, as much as those in power. It's that use of telos, it's a dative, third declension. as much as those in power, i.e. the Atreidai. 4. Each city and each army is, well, and we get a genitive here, it's perhaps under the power of, or perhaps dependent wholly upon those who lead it. So each city and each army is perhaps dependent upon those who lead it. But those archos, so archos munto, but those of men who are disorderly, becoming disorderly, in other words, they violate, it's part of the genitive here, so those violating, those of mortals who perhaps violate social order or behave disorderly, become evil by the words of their teachers. An interesting line here. So those of mortals who behave disorderly become wicked, become evil by the words of their teachers. This is an interesting line in the historical context of the time, where you had young people behaving badly under the influence of the sophists. So perhaps Sophocles is having a bit of a dig at them here. Logos lelecte pas. So each word has been spoken. Sorry, the whole story has been said. So the whole story has been said. The one hating the sons of Atreus, may he be a friend to me, and likewise also to the gods. Now we have here next, which I'll do in the next recording, a choral interlude in place of the usual choral comment at the end of a long speech. And the same thing happens a little bit later. This is mirrored in 507 following, where we have choric interludes in place of a choral comment. But I'll do that in the next recording.